welcome. We're doing another Automated with Tech live stream here. So I'm gonna just quickly pop into what I'm doing. So this is actually a continuation of the last live stream I did here on this channel, which is this one, the AI heartbeat. So toward the end of this was a gem that I created, again, latent experience prompting, kind of showing you how to do that. So I went to the end and we crafted it up. And at the end, I was basically saying like, hey, I'm going to go through here and start to level it up a little bit. So, which is the behind the scenes stuff that I do. And so I wanted to show you kind of what that looks like so you can kind of see the next little bit. And that is what this now is. So what I had done, I just called it the AWT experience for Automated with Tech, which is of course the community. And the idea here was to build a gem, essentially. I mean, ultimately AI automation, but right now gem, that could handle everything that I needed to handle kind of from a seed perspective and can really guide everything that this community does so that everything that's coming from this gem comes from a consistent source, right? So it should be patterned correctly so that every experience that this gem kind of helps us create is kind of coming from the same source material, the same foundation, the same thinking, the same structure, the same ideas, values, all that fun stuff. So that there's some consistency back there. That'll make it easier for me to build. And so while I was doing that, my thinking was, and this goes back to the question we had received around like how to use AI for workflows and things like that. So I was like, well, maybe I could just combine that into this, which I think worked actually pretty well. So I wanted to show you kind of where it is right now. And then I wanted to, I'll kind of give you an example of what it works, and I'll give you a tour of how it's put together. And then, you've got some details on how you can start to level up your own gems, specific to some things that we're doing here, and then how you can customize them. And then those of you that want help in that in the community, just go to AutomatedWith.tech. Posts in the community, and I'll be happy to help you out. I'm sure I'll be setting up training and stuff like that in November as we kind of get out of, I'm going to make October the last little bit of friends and family, and then we'll start ramping things up in November for this. But in the meantime, let me show you kind of what we're doing here. So I can literally put anything I want in here, and this is why I did it. So it's built so it understands the tech, it understands the community, it understands the likely members and participants, including myself back there. So that's what this gem does. And then what it should be doing is being able to come through and we can architect essentially any experience I want to create. And it'll kind of walk me through the before and after states. It'll give me kind of a rundown of how it might work. It'll give me the technical build out. And at that point, I can kind of go back and forth and confirm if it's going to be useful or not. Remember, the idea here is not copy and paste answers. It's a huge mistake with AI. It's just, can I get something that's 85, 90% done so I can actually get moving on something pretty useful? And let's find out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in something pretty basic here, just to kind of show us. But I like to say, I'm just going to say, I'd like, let's create an experience. Doesn't matter what the words are. Actually, forget this. I'm going to do it on mic because it's much easier for me to do that. So I'm just going to do that. So I'd like an experience where maybe it's a 3-day kind of challenge where there'll be the initial post or an offer page of some sort that talks about the challenge that they can sign up for. There's emails, obviously, that promote that challenge. Then there would be emails that are for during the actual challenge itself. And then during the challenge, it's kind of a 3-day process where they learn the basics of latent experience prompting and kind of leave with their own gem, I think would be kind of a cool thing. So it goes from like maybe the initial, and you can kind of make up whatever the most useful version of this is, so that latent experience prompting basics are covered and kind of maybe the prompting basics, then we move into some practice, and then finally whatever that 3rd day is where they've got their gem and everyone's doing show and tells, and we can kind of move from there. So I'm not sure what else to do here and open to whatever ideas. So I'm just blurting out what I'm kind of thinking about. Like I want a 3-day funnel, kind of a challenge thing. I can decide to make it paid or free or whatever. It can give you those details. I'm just kind of riffing on the idea. And then I'm giving it to the gem, which should be able to go through and say, okay, well, from this constraints, right? So AutomatedWith.tech, how we do. Okay, then it's how do we do this with the tech stack that we currently have? What might the messaging be of it, right? Now, I am not caught up in the words, right? So it's like, okay, partner, I can feel the intention behind this. Like, again, don't give a crap what this is saying. That's not how you use AI, at least not in this circumstances when you're using it for these reasons. I'm just looking for the patterns, right? So all I'm looking for here is So you're reaching for the experience someone who arrives curious, maybe a little intimidated, and then leaving 3 days later holding something they created, a key to unlock their own insights, which is exactly right. That's what I'm looking for. Again, I don't care about the exact words they're saying. I care about are they saying the transition of the journey, which is what I'm looking for. That's the journey. Um, so now it's kind of gone through, and then what will happen here is it'll spit this out, and I'm just going to paste this into a Google Doc. So I'm just going to paste a markdown that kind of makes it nice and formatted. So and then what I can do is I've got a little build guide. So I'm going to walk you through kind of what it does. So the first thing is, okay, here's the transformation, right? So we want to be able to move them in 3 days. Here's what the first state is. Think of this even in copywriting, all right, marketing stuff. You kind of know what the transition of the user is through an experience. It's kind of just saying, here's the current starting state. Here's what our target state's going to be. So now we know kind of who we're talking to, and ideally what we're trying to get them to do, right, to have. From there, we've got step 0. So here's the member experience. So to see the offer page or the email promising a 3-day simple path, stop using AI, start co-creating, which is great. I can call operating, start moving from user to operator. Again, those little things, there are ways to fix that, and the more that I use this, the more that will happen. I'll show you that in a little bit where that works, because it does evolve itself. Feels intrigued by the idea of building their own personal insight engine without needing code. Sign up, sort of form, perfect. So here's the seed. So this receives the email. There's a video link that demystifies LEP. There's a story. First practice. Now, none of this exists, right? So it's making up kind of the assets that are here, but I'll show you what those are in a second. First practice exercise, taking a current stuck state, then feeling being unstuck, and then dedicated in a post. So it's pulling in the community. Then there's the day 2 email. So why behind? There's the neuroscience of it. So we can give a little bit there. The basic gem, which we have, which is great. Harvesting the gem. Day 3 is around the structure of the gem. Okay, day 4 integration. All right, so now I've got core messaging stuff. So here's kind of the basic tags, a little bit on the voice that we're looking for, prompt for the offer page. So again, this is the stuff where I'm getting the building blocks from the seed gem here, right, our little experience gem. And I can give these building blocks to others. So for now, I could just use this thing and get good enough to get going. And is it going to sound like AI? Yes, but who gives a crap if it gets the action? It doesn't matter. There's too many people that are going to be focused on, it sounds like AI, and I understand that. But that is a very simple fix. The hard part is not getting it to not sound like AI. It's getting it to just agree with what you're trying to do first. So that's what I'm doing. I'm focusing on that. So right now I've got the prompts coming in, which is perfect because I have what I need to be able to grow those out. I've got the prompts for day 1, for day 3. And then there's the email. So these are image prompts, right? If it was doing image prompts. I don't know that I'll use these. It's cool that they're there. These are the actual email prompts that are coming through for the post content. So email number 1, email number 2, etc. Here's the assembly guide, which I find particularly useful. This is what I wanted for a couple of reasons. One, because it gives me the tags I need to create, which is important because I'll show you what that stuff is in a second. So here's our tags coming in. There's a certain tagging structure that we're having, and so it's helping us to create that coming through. Doesn't mean we're going to use these words, right? It uses Genesis for everything, so I'm probably not going to use that. But it doesn't matter. I get the tagging structure in here. That's going to go into another doc that actually has access to, so it knows the tagging structure, and then that tagging structure just stays. That's kind of why it's doing that. We've got the sign-up form that I'm supposed to do with integration, so I can see the first name and email, how to actually set it up, which is cool. It gives me links to the documentation, so I can actually go through and get specific docs to whatever the thing is that I'm trying to do right now. So it automatically has that in case I have any questions on how to build it. And this is useful for me because as much as I love this Fluent products that we use in the WordPress site from a company called WP Managed Ninja, they are awesome, but there's a lot to them, and I'm learning them all, and it's tough to just learn everything and be an expert in everything without having years of experience of knowing how to stitch these things together. Well, with the gem, I don't have to do that. It just says, oh, well, go here to this part, add these tags, they're going to come into play here, right? And it's putting it together in a way that makes sense for me to set up. So here's the pre-challenge setup stuff I would go through, and then all I'm doing literally is I'm coming through here, and then I'll just kind of go, I don't even know where it is, format, tax, there we go, and then just strike through, right? So that's how I do it to sort of say, put lines through it and be like, this step is done. So I have a nice little checklist. There's other ways I can do that too, but just for good enough to get going, right? So I've got the automation coming in through there. There's the activation sequence, so I can set up the actual automation itself in Fluent CRM. It gives me very specifically what to do, when to do it, why to do it, which is great. Then here's our content delivery that's coming through with the posts that are all set up, a certain space that's been created just for the challenge. Here's post 1, post 2, post 3. So it has that stuff set out, which is cool. The other paid versions of the upsells coming through, right? So it's giving me some ideas for that sort of stuff, which again, I can still riff with. And then it's got kind of the entry point. Here's where they're coming in. And then the exit point. Here's where they're leaving, right? So I kind of have that set out. Now, what's cool about this is I've done this, right? So I could come through here and just give a little bit of riffing as an example. Let me just do this. What might the copy of the offer page look like as assuming it's experienced? Let me just do Mike much faster. What would the offer page copy look like, assuming it's experienced from the standpoint of who is highly likely to be the most obviously useful member that's going through this particular stage, from their kind of, what they would expect, how they experience it as an experience. I want to make sure that copy is obviously something that's going to be useful from their experience, not necessarily expected, maybe even surprisingly useful. But I'm curious, what is that offer page copy likely to be, that it's highly likely to be the most useful experience, again, from the members' experience, and of course, from the experience of the co-creators of the AWT platform, because obviously it has to work and we've got to get members going through it. So I'm just going to see what this does. This is me just sort of riffing out some latent experience stuff just to kind of see what it will do with it. Again, I'm not doing this one for reals as an example experience because I already got a welcome one that I'm working on right now, which will actually be, I'm going to do these as separate spaces so everybody can kind of sign up for them. And there'll be the welcome experience first, which will be experience 0 that everybody goes through. And that one's going to be a little different because that one's actually going to be where you're taking in a form. It's going to ask you kind of where you're stuck, and then it's going to give you a prompt to help you get unstuck immediately in an email. For a first member coming in, I think that's a lot more useful than, hey, let's get your profile set up, because it's like that's all about us and the community, and I wanted it to be like something for the members. So we're going to do that. That'll give us some engagement. Then we'll start adding in other trainings. But this is an example of how they're going to be built. Okay, so skeptical assembler copy therefore can't be salesy. So here's the page. Stop guessing at prompts. Now again, all this shit comes from AI constantly. Start, stop, all the time. But eventually all the copy is going to do this. And let's face it, in a few short years, there probably aren't web pages you'll be seeing much as a human anyway. So I'm not going to care about this stuff. In the beginning, I might just paste it and put it in there. Because if it works, who cares? And if it doesn't, I'm going to let the AI know that so that it can learn that this stuff doesn't work. If it doesn't work. I know start stop is a pattern with AI, but I don't care, right? Because it doesn't matter. Maybe not everybody else knows that. 97% of the world doesn't use AI the way we do. So, we'll see. The subheadline, free 3-day challenge for assemblers, right? I may call them operators, doesn't matter. Most AI training is broken, treats AI magic 8-ball, taught to copy paste secret prompts. It's not a real process, defensible. Notice how this is patterned though too. It's not paragraphs, right? You're a builder, creator, assembler. You don't want magic, you want a blueprint that works every single time. You've seen the hype, you're skeptical, you want to know. This isn't a course, it's a 3-day build. Our entire philosophy is different. We believe the most powerful, this is pretty good. We're gonna have a simple 2-part framework for this. Over 3 days, we won't just teach you. So here I've got essentially what I could use as copy for the offer page. So I can take that, and then I've got my little offer page copy set out. So bam. Now, is it perfect? Does it copy and paste it into a WordPress site? No, but I have the bones of it, which is good enough to get going. That's all I care about because I'm not trying to be the best copywriter in the world right now. It's not about that. It's about making the best experience happen. And if the product itself is really cool, people will forgive the crappy copy. They just will because it'll be a good experience. And that's the whole idea. So I wanted to kind of show some stuff like that. Is it perfect? No, but holy crap, this thing can do 80% of the heavy lifting. And imagine as I've got the other gems, which I'm just going to rinse and repeat. This is why this is in my head already done. But it's just building another gem that's customized to take the blueprint input, which remember, this structure is the same structure. Look how structured this is. It's on purpose structured like this because this gives me a structure that will always be in this same structure that I can give to another AI. That's the whole point. Now, anyway, let me show you what I have built this to be. So in the gem, I'm just going to go in so everybody can see it. In gem, you've got the name. So there's the name. I'm not really using the description. Again, this is the one that we use privately. So here's the instructions as it's coming through, right? Going through there, we've got some stuff. I've got some latent experience stuff in here. This is where it's talking about the community itself. Also, I've got it kind of thinking slightly differently about the community, kind of living as a machine that's experiencing the products for their component levels. I kind of did that. because I wanted it to think through like, what is a comment for? What is engagement for? What can I use for reaction for? And sort of rethink how things could be, not necessarily just use a community like everybody else is using communities, right? I wanted to have that different experience. So anyway, that's all of those are in there where it gives a structure. And then I gave it additional specific knowledge. One is on the Fluent integrations that we use. So this is all the Fluent products, which again, I love, highly recommend. So this is all the default Fluent integrations. Here's the text structure. This is where we put in what our tagging structure is, what our lists are currently in Fluent CRM, any experiences that we are already built or are building. So that's already in there. So the bot can reference and say, oh, I already know this experience 0 exists. So let's link this one to experience 0 or have experience 0 be the trigger for this next experience. And so it can see that sort of stuff. And these are the things that evolve over time so that I can get kind of an updated version of what that looks like. In fact, I'll show you in a bit. Here's participants. Now this includes stuff about me, just kind of as the builder assembler, so it knows kind of what I am, which I'm the more skeptical one. So I try to always be like, nope, you can't do that with Fluent. Let's figure out something else. But also the members that are back here, so it can kind of see from their perspective, is this experienced in a way that might be useful, right? And then I'm not going to question it. We're going to see, because if it's not useful, you're going to know. I'm going to see it in the numbers, and I can go back to AI and say, hey, they're not saying you're saying it's useful, but I'm not getting that experience, so we got to change it. And then at that point, we'll just add some more details into this one that says, oh, here's what worked or didn't work in terms from an experience standpoint, which again, not a lot. It doesn't mean I have to add pages and pages and pages to this. It's not about quantity that's there. The other stuff is just all about latent experience prompting. So this is some just the research that we have done on latent experience prompting, so it knows kind of wholeheartedly how to do it, how to create some courses and structures and styles, and can have conversations around that, because I wanted it to do that so it really understood what we were talking about and why we were talking about it in this community. That's why I have it in the seed gem, so that they all have the same knowledge as they're going through. So anyway, that is pretty much that. I wanted to show you the gem results here for experience 0. So this kind of shows you, I will zoom out, or actually make the free up. There we go. So this was the prompt. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Here we go. There we go. So starting out with the members have a true experience, what we can do with our tech stack to provide an experience. What do we do? Right? Just starting out was my keyword. I was literally like, this is going to be the first one we're doing. I'm not telling it that, but that's kind of what I told it. So it's coming through and saying, okay, well, here's the first one, right? So this is the first version of it. So what I did is I came through and I said, all right, let's remove all this. Oh, actually, I've got it marked down, right? First things. So just heads up. Sometimes you see this crap because all of them will start doing this. They're always trying to push citation marks in there. That's what I did the no cite for. So I took that out. That was the only thing. Even though it's in the instructions, but it happens, right? This is a gem, not an automation, so it's going to happen. As I turn this into an automation, it'll be a lot more consistent, but right now I'm defining the process. And if I can do a process through a gem, I can absolutely do it through an automation. If I can't do a process through a gem, it's unlikely it's going to be automatable anyway. So that's kind of what this is going to be. So now I come through and I've got the markdown in there. So at this point, this was me miking through, and I was talking through what I was doing. So I was saying basically, hey, let's alter this experience a little bit. And what I did is I went through and I was like, oh, here's my experience as I'm experiencing this. You know, here's what I think is going on. Here's what I'm kind of considering. And gave it my feedback as to what I thought from that perspective, and then had it go through to, you know, the latent experience prompting stuff, all about the experience and how to get it from a different experience, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, all right, we're coming through, and it changed it to be a little more frictionless, because what it was doing was, I think initially it was the introduce yourself task. It was like, oh, go into the introduce yourself, which again is what, of course, it's going to recommend that, because that's what every community does. It's just the probability engine. Of course, it's going to recommend that. I need to say, yep, I see that. Of course, that's the most obvious, useful thing to do. But from our perspective this is the human in the loop stuff, right? This is why you don't just trust AI to randomly guide you wherever and be led by it. That's not what I'm doing. I'm using it as a tool to sort of mimic state. And I'm like, okay, well, I get that the current state might be the most useful state is to do a prompt introduce yourself. That's what every community does. So of course AI is going to think that, because every blog post says that generically. However, in a pattern that seems like a bunch of friction. And I did that. I said, I experienced this as a bunch of friction. Like, I don't want to introduce myself. I don't know anybody here. I don't know if this thing is going to be useful or not. So that's what it was. It's like, okay, so let's make the first experience a private victory, not a public chore, right? That's good. Now, again, that's human in the loop. This is where hopefully my little magic, my experience is helping to go into the AI, make this thing a little bit better so I can pull more from it. because I'm uniquely thinking like this. Maybe nobody else does. Maybe they just have a generic onboarding sequence, which is fine because it's what everybody does. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted something uniquely different. So we instead sort of flipped it. So then instead of go and post your instead of posting your tell me about yourself thing, it was creating an email that actually had a prompt within the email specific to a form that they had already filled out. So it actually uses part of the response, which is new because we haven't done this yet. But I'm leveling up this. This will be the new welcome sequence that'll be coming through. So you go to a form that'll basically say, hey, just what's your biggest challenge or whatever. Once it comes through, it'll give you a prompt that's been crafted so you can basically get unstuck, hopefully, and then have that experience ready. And at that point, we can then come in and give you another one at that. But at that point, you've already got an experience. We're going, oh, this is kind of cool. I already got a win from this community. I hope that's the experience we want you to have, because then you're more likely to share it, to have a better experience with it, to maybe fill out the public profile. Like you have a reason to actually commit to spending more time with it because there's already a win. You already gotten value from it, and that was just from the email after you joined. So that's kind of what we're working toward doing. By the way, this will be retrofit for anybody that wants to do it. I'll make the experience. So if anybody hasn't gone through it, you can just go in there and click a link and pick it up to go through if you happen to be an existing friends or family member already. But basically all the newbies are going to go through here, right, when this is up. So I did the same thing. Again, I came through and said, okay, they have this idea of using Fluent boards kind of as a library, which again, I like. It's a little complicated right now. I don't want to add a bunch of tech. I want to add in the complexity to it. So I wanted to go back to just using Fluent Community, not bringing up the Fluent board stuff that you can. There's some cool stuff I think we can do with that from a functionality perspective, but not this first round, right? I don't want to overly complicate it. So I'm like, all right, so it's brought it back down. The last little thing I did, I think I experienced with some tags. And oh no, I didn't. I did the yeah, I think I don't remember what I did here. I think it was just tags. But anyway, the point was the final blueprint came through. I did a couple other things. And then, oh yeah, this is the library. Okay, so I was going through an experience. Wherever this was, I was just basically experiencing it a few different times, right? Which is me going through saying, giving feedback. It took me like 15 minutes, not a lot of time. As I'm going through, I'm just iterating it, right? Picking out the one that I want until I finally get the one that I need. Then this is where I'm updating it. So this is the structure document, which I'll show you kind of what it looks like. So this gives it's all markdown. This just tells it, okay, here's some things. So sometimes where it says, oh, I can do this, and it's like, oh, no, you can't. It will add itself in here and be like, I've learned I can't do this, so it doesn't try to do that stuff again. There's some details around WordPress and how it's set up. There's got some other details around how we have some other tech stuff set up, and of course the structure of the community and the tagging system and everything else is back there. But what I'm doing here is I'm like, hey, go through all of this. Here's the current documents. Go through everything we did here and then suggest some changes. And that's what it did. And then I just basically asked it to go through and rewrite the whole freaking thing, which is what this is. So this became the new version of it, and it just went and it rewrote it and said, okay, well, because it's not that big right now. As this grows, I'm sure I'll just do it in sections instead. But remember, if I can do it with a gem, which right now is copy and paste and manual, I can do it with a Active Pieces or N8N or Zapier or Make or anything that's an automation. But first, they got to be able to do it with a gem consistently, copying and pasting. I'm going to do this for months before I start automating these things. But that's just so I can really cook the process. So each one of these knowledge docs will have its own little structure. The gems will be very structured. The instructions get more and more structured. And as I go through and iterate these, they update themselves so that their knowledge documents are actually getting a little more structure. And that helps the next time we're using the gem to get even more structured. And then all of a sudden, the gem itself is evolving itself, which is the whole point to this. They work really well. I've done this technique a lot. It works really, really well. So anyway, I wanted to be able to show those to you, see kind of what we are currently doing. I'll be building out that welcome sequence because, again, now it's just assembling it for the most part. So I'll have that done. I don't know if I'll do it this week or not. I might do it next week because I got a little bit of travel coming up. But by November, we're going to be up and running. And then I'll have another couple of experiences already ready. We'll do one for basically to get the first post out and the member profile. So we'll have all of those. And I think that's it. So with that, I just wanted to do a quick little show and tell. Hopefully it was useful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the community. If you have any questions, just pop them into the comments here, obviously, in the channel. And of course, if you're already in the AutomatedWith.tech community, just drop it over there because I'll be keeping all of that. And then we'll be opening up training and some private stuff just for community members in November. as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we will see you on the flip side. Thanks. Take care.